All right. And we're live.
There we go.
Welcome to the BrainDrive Monday development call. We do this every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. If you're not familiar with BrainDrive, head on over to braindrive.ai and check us out, and we'll have a short intro video there. For everyone else, I'm Dave Waring, and I handle the operations side here at BrainDrive.
And I'm Dave Jones, and I handle the tech stack side of the house.
Great. Our mission here at BrainDrive is to help you, is to make it easy to build, control, and benefit from your own AI system. So we're all about providing you with the freedom and ownership to, and making it easy to build your own AI system so you don't have to rely on big tech AI systems like ChatGPT, and we don't either. And with that, we'll jump into our Monday Dev Call agenda, starting with any celebrations from last week. Dave, you want to start
Uh,
there?
let's go with we made it through it. Because it kind of started. I almost have to go in reverse. In the beginning of the week, which I plan to be doing mostly just we'll call them job descriptions, things that we want to have other people help us accomplish, while cleaning up some little core things. It ended up I found a area of the code that would not have handled managed hosting or a lot of users very well. So I stopped everything I was doing and turned around and got that cleaned up very well. In fact, better than I expected, which stumbled into what I'm going to call Christmas, as I described to Dave. He's going to have Christmas morning. He doesn't even know it yet, of some things that got accomplished as that steamrolled into effect. So
Awesome.
uh, we had some lemonade, we had some lemons, but we definitely made lemonade or margaritas or something from them. But it was pretty good.
Awesome. On my end, I've been working on the ultimate guide to local AI. And, I think we're sort of at that sweet spot now where the system is almost ready to be included in the guide, which is just really going to take it to the next level. And then also, there is some content coming out around this that's really good, but it's really targeted at developers. So I think our guide, which is targeted at non-developers, is really needed and will also be very popular from what we're seeing in the
Mhm.
forums and everything. So that's my celebration from last week. Any challenges from your end?
Minus, I found the glaring hole. And it was like it was one of the things that for local, if you were running this locally, like just myself or even just two or three people, you wouldn't have noticed anything. I didn't notice while I was working on it. It wasn't until I looked at it and I was doing plugin installs and starting, and then I got the AI to help me to do the math really quick. And you're going to need a system to run this for 100 users or 50 users that would have been insane and not effective at all for what we wanted to accomplish. So it was more of a hit a pause button. Let's redesign that really quick. Let's get that going. And then that, like I said, it catapulted into something different and better, that everybody will see this morning. And hey, I'm quite happy right now.
Great. Awesome. Not really any challenges for me last week that come top of mind. So I'll skip that part for me this week. And then, yeah, I guess let's just jump right into the task list. We are basically working through this roadmap here,
Yep.
which is on the forums at community.braindrive.ai. If you haven't joined us over there, I encourage you to. And we're working towards version zero point 0.4,
Yep.
correct?
Yes, we are hammering out O.4, which is
All
the
right.
core, getting the core polished up, and ready for people to touch it really well.
Awesome. And we've been making good progress through this roadmap over the last couple weeks, and we're moving towards what we call our Katie Carter release, our V1 release, which is basically publicly available and ready to download and get up and running for non-developers. Our Katie Carter persona, as we call her, who's a content creator that wants to use AI to create and market her content and wants to own her own AI system to do that, but as a non-developer. So that's what we're working towards. And I'll turn it back over to Dave to give us the update on what was accomplished last week.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen real quick, as soon as I can find it. There you go. I'm in dark mode today because I was playing around with a few things.
It's growing on me.
Yeah, I switch just based on whatever I'm testing, whatever I'm doing. And there's no rhyme or reason for it. Let me go ahead and move this over. There we go. So the first thing I guess we will take a look at is the new and improved install procedure. The plugin manager itself had no real changes. But if you want to install a plugin, all you need to do right now is have the build itself. If you wanted to not have open source code available, just have the build itself as a release on a GitHub. It'll automatically go out and find the most recent version for you. If you wished for whatever reason to install a lower version, feel free. There's nothing stopping you. This is more for testing, especially like as I was testing the upgrade procedures and stuff like that. This stopped me from having to go back and forth. But you never know with the releases. Look at Microsoft Windows. If they release an update, you don't always want to be there on the bleeding edge. The same could happen with plugins, and you'll just simply from the word go have the choice.
Great.
So
That's
if we
awesome.
want, yep, if we want to install, it'll go through the entire process of downloading it, making sure that everything exists correctly, installing it into the system. It installs it in now a new shared repository so that the code will exist, same code will exist for all users for every version. This will keep memory footprints down, hard drive requirements down, and it'll just be a much more leaner system altogether. Then now we'll get to the additions. This is especially important for developers and users trying to give information to developers. Um, when you're developing, you'll have issues. They always do. I have a new piece of code in there which will test the plugin itself so that you can determine at this point, are there any loading issues whatsoever, rather than have a black box. And because a lot of times when I was developing, I was scratching my head, okay, what could have went wrong? And if I'm doing that sometimes even for 5 minutes, somebody could spend 5 hours doing that. So you just simply click the button, it'll go through the series of tests and will
Oh, that's cool.
display to you exactly where everything is, if there were any issues. I do not have any, this right here, this warning, that's there as a space holder. I don't have an idea of what I want to test for yet in the back end, so I'm just not going to have it. We don't have any plugins that add back in yet. We will, and that's when that'll come into play. The plugin that you'll see shortly, this is where this part, the plugin, the module instantiation took place for testing. Because a lot of times if your plugin has an issue in the code, it built correctly, but when it tries to interact with the core, sometimes an issue might arise. You'll get these problems listed here for you before you even know it. So that
That's
was like,
super cool.
now we'll take this one step further because when you're developing, you do not always have to install and uninstall and then install to retest because that could be old really quick. Once you know you have all of these validations through, okay, your plugin's pretty much right there as far as that's concerned. So you just have to go back to the manager. Here's the plugin we were working on, and it comes with its own test as well. So all you'd have to do is when you build your code, you send it to the back end, which if you're a developer, you get what I'm talking about. You build your code rather than keep it inside the plugin environment, you just put it right where it exists on the back end server, refresh the browser, and you can retest right then and there without having to do an uninstall and reinstall of the plugin itself. And that saves me almost 10 to 15 minutes every time there's an issue right there. So it,
Awesome.
so it allowed me to, and it has the same test. So the same test you see on one side, you'll see on the other side.
Amazing. This looks really cool.
So we're definitely polishing this thing up really quick for developers, so that they can build fancier things with less black boxes involved. And that allowed me to get to the next piece. Dave and I have always talked about the core and how critical that is for any AI system, but especially for Katie Carter. And last week we were talking about plugins, and I was like, I'd like to approach rather than break each piece of a page into a plugin, let's readdress it as a page being the objective and see what happened from that. So I went that way and I came up with this. And this is, let's see, I'll go to a better model. It's a little faster here. And I'm not really tweaking. I now have it working completely as it is now and adding features to it to expand it. But this works where it irons out a lot of the quirks. So I can just simply tell it hello. It keeps the scroll bar where I want it to. It keeps the conversation on the screen. And if I want to start a new chat, boom, it does it instantly. I just move it. Let's see. Tell me a joke.
Skeleton.
Nope,
Wow,
this one did.
what my
Oh, this is
1.5B.
this is
Okay,
the
yeah.
1.5B. This is I'm
Hey,
just
it's a
throwing
good
it.
model. I've been playing with it too.
Yep.
Like it's the Quinn models are like really, really good. And
Yep.
everybody seems to have rallied around those two as the
Yeah. Nobody. I've heard nobody go, "Oh my God, Quinn sucks so badly." You know, it's
which
like
is surprising because I would have thought DeepSeek would have been the ones that people were, but it's actually the Quinn models that everybody
I
talks about.
I think it comes down to the hardware you have available. If you are sitting at an because there was a Reddit post about people describing the amount of RAM they have, and there's people sitting out there with 256 gigabytes of VRAM, which is
Right.
you're on the 1%ers
Right.
or less on that. Then you
Right.
can look at DeepSeek and go, I can run you type things, that kind of thing. But for the rest of the human planet, Quinn are excellent choices to run with. You get the close to the state of the art without being state of the art. So that was my goal of trying to clean up this chat interface so that you can have a chat with an AI, our core, with far fewer quirks. And now I have the platform there for me to build off with and enhance. So cut and paste. You can see tokens. You can see generation speeds. We're gonna that way I can expand this very easily, very quickly, and move forward. And then developers can see the code, see everything I did to make this happen, and give them a leg up on moving forward.
Hey, this is awesome. This looks really good. I really the history now also how you have it set up, like
Yep.
select a conversation or start new with the history right there. I know exactly what that is.
Yep.
And I think it's going to be an interesting, we talked about, not breaking the user experience of the chat GPTs and just basically giving them that. And this does that, but I think it does it in a good way for us because the other way that we're breaking the chat GPT experience or
Yep.
upgrading it, should I say, is really focusing things around the pages and the
Yep.
different use cases. And so having those more front and center in the left-hand navigation for people to navigate between and
Hmm.
then which is what you're going to want. I think with BrainDrive, it's all about the use cases.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And actually using this to do things and not just having a blank slate
Yep.
for the user. Like once you as a developer have decided what you want that user to do. So I really like this decision now to
And
have
this
it.
will go ahead. Go ahead.
And it's also like it's not you don't need to see like a huge like chunk of past chats,
Yep.
like hiding that behind the history
Yeah.
but then still giving it to you,
If if
when you want
if
to
you
select it, and then having the pages be the things that are front and center on the left-hand sidebar, I think is really cool. I think that's really nice.
and I have enough room here, so when I want to, because this will stumble right into personas, so that people can play with the system prompt, play with temperature settings, top P, those kind of things right there on the fly. And I have enough room on the entire screen to do whatever I want.
Amazing. This looks really good.
And let's go right here just to, oh, this should be long enough to give me what I want. Oh, no. Let's see. Tell me another joke. See, and the key thing is like the scroll bar for me was like our previous attempt at doing this. It was quirky and not really uh, cohesive to a work environment or a workflow.
Right.
And now it's like it keeps the conversation right there. You're free to go back if you want. I'm not evaporating it. And the prompt goes right back to the input window, so you could not have to touch your mouse, visually go from that's what you gave me. Now here's another prompt.
And this feels like the chat is good enough now that I can start putting it in my guides and stuff, right?
Yep, that was the kind of it's like this works. This does everything I want to do in this moment, and I can enhance it from here.
Amazing. Okay, awesome.
See, I told you,
Um,
Christmas morning.
Really cool. So this is great. Really exciting. I mean, this is like we're close now, you know.
And I
All right.
cleaned up a few other little issues, but they are nothing visual. They're just, hey, me just cleaning up code.
Okay. So in terms of the work that, what was preventing us from getting this out to developers last week that you now have fixed so that we can get it, or
That
not fixed, but like what's been put into place now that makes this easier to give out to developers? So
there were
one
two
thing,
things.
yeah,
Okay, there were two things. One was basically it was unified, but not really, I guess, put in concrete how the plugins would be stored in the drive, how they would be accessed on the drive, and that would be cohesive, not just for one user, but at managed hosting level. If you had 1,000 users, and that was where I took the math when to the point where it was like, this is going to break most servers right there. If you wanted to put 1,000 users on this platform, hardware wise, you should be able to,
right,
you know. And but the way it was set up, you would have never got there. You'd have been
right,
stump. You'd have felt it probably at 50 users very easily, and at 100 users, it gets unsurmountable. So that was the
right.
key thing that had to be fixed while we only are one user playing on it. So that way there'd be no walking backwards or anything like that. It's just now it's right. And then the second thing was we're targeting developers right now. So a way that I know the system better than anybody to give me information that I need. Because if it can give it to me, then it can give it to any developer.
Right.
And that's where the testing came into place and how to create a developer workflow of a plugin.
Okay.
And that we were not there yet at that point. But now it's like I'll do a video and I'll show people, I'll go through the entire plugin stages of, hey, this is how I build a plugin. This is the lifecycle manager, which is the install script, is down to it's 800 lines of code, but for each plugin, you almost only have to change the data that's different for your plugin now. And if the 800 lines of code are only there because if you are developing a fancy plugin, I have not removed that capability from you.
And so this makes, this is sort of brings in the composability like architecture, right? Where someone can take a plugin that you've developed and then tweak it and make it their own instead of
Yep.
having to start from zero because it's all open source and you can do whatever you want with it. And, this is what we really feel like is a big missing piece of the ecosystem right
Yep.
now. There's a lot of good chat interfaces out there that provide a polished chat experience, but if you want to build user experiences on top of those systems, it's very difficult to do that. And we really believe that if we're going to have a serious competitor to our closed source ChatGPTs of the world, that this is how we're going to do it by really empowering the developer community to work together and build on each other's inventions, all the open
Yep.
source ethos, etc. And do that in a way where, you 100% own and control everything. So it's your system, once you download it, completely MIT license, go run with it, do what you want with it, hopefully contribute back to the ecosystem with plugins and use cases and development, etc. And we're off to the races.
Yep.
Okay, big day. Super exciting. All right, let me just pop back over to
Mm.
the agenda. Um, okay, the caching issue, is that still an issue?
Nope, nope, that's still an issue.
Okay.
We the caching issue and some responsiveness for like mobile users and stuff like that are the only two issues remaining on the I'll call it the dynamic page renderer because that's what it's called in code.
Okay.
They're the only. I knocked out a few other issues this weekend that, like I told you, some behind the scenes and stuff like that that nobody sees anything but me.
Yep.
They were all cleaned up, and they're the only two issues remaining on the dynamic page renderer.
Okay, cool. So we'll leave that. And
Yep,
then in terms of let me just bring up the
four.
roadmap here. Yeah. So in terms of V.4,
We have local models running automatically.
amazing.
The interface is stable and bug free. It's not okay. I've cleaned up all the bugs. I know there's some glitches that need to be improved upon, and that's what we're talking about, like the dynamic page render and stuff like that. But I've been able to clean up. my glaring holes that I know that I classify as bugs.
Yep. So we'll mark that for
Yeah.
now. And then, we'll be resolving bugs forever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then the UX UI feedback, even better,
Yep.
than we were expecting. Brain Drive Concierge, I would say we have it working, but
We
also
have
we
it
haven't.
working, but it's not implemented to where we want it yet.
Yeah, I think what we've made since we started this roadmap, and we should probably make some adjustments on it. I think we've decided that in order to get to the Katie Carter release,
Mhm.
like we really need to be focused on developers and getting them being able to build on top of this. And
Yep.
so we've sort of like, if there's a bug here or there, like a developer, especially ones that we're contracting with initially to help us build this, it's not a big deal for them.
Yep.
It will be a big deal for Katie Carter, but like we need the developers on this to like help us resolve these bugs, to
Yep.
discover new bugs and all that type of stuff. So we may want to take another look at the roadmap and just
Yeah, because that's been there since we went live.
yeah,
We started building public. We did, okay, let's do a quick roadmap of the things we
right.
might need. And
Right. So I'll actually just put that on your list for this coming week is just to take a look at the roadmap,
yep.
and see what we need to tweak. Okay, and then okay, so that'll go on that. And this is really going to be for this week is to create the job description,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay. And I got this. We have this overview from Matt on what we've done for Brain Drive Concierge. So we're putting that on hold for right now because Brain Drive Concierge is really for Katie, and we need to get these other issues worked out first. And then we're going to circle back and pick right back up where he left off.
Yep.
Brain Drive Concierge, for anyone who hasn't seen, is we're going to have a support agent basically that's downloaded locally into Brain Drive that's trained to help you get up and running with Brain Drive and answer all your questions and also to direct you to different forum threads and GitHubs, etc., depending on the conversations that you're having with him. Um, I feel like Brain Drive Concierge in my mind is key, but
It's
they
whatever you want to make it out to be.
yeah.
Especially since it's on a Quinn model. It's funny. It was like one of my tests that I was given quit to see if it would stick to names. And it was like any name I give it, it's just like, yep, that's who I am.
Right, right. Okay, cool. And then local version of Brain Drive Memory. Okay, so this is from my end. We're working with our developer Beck on this. Are contracting with him. I think we've reached a point with trying to. So we have Brain Drive Memory, which is our kind of sophisticated RAG system that doesn't just pull information from all these different places, but also will add information and update information, as information changes in your life, and then automatically inject that context, whether it be about your hobbies. If you're asking for, ideas to do for the weekend, it should know that you have a family with young kids in my case, and, you have a cabin in the woods and like to play golf and make
Yep.
recommendations accordingly. So we have that working with everything open source except the main model that you're chatting with.
Yep.
And that we're using GPT or OpenAI 4.1. So the latest model. And until we got to that latest model, it was kind of working. It
It was
works
hit and miss.
now. Yeah. So the good news is, as the open source models continue to improve, it's very easy to swap out that 4.1 model for whatever open
Mhm.
source model you want to. That's no problem. And we've very consciously made the decision to, for example, make sure we're using an open source embedding model, which is not easy to swap out,
Yep.
right? And we have that working. So but our goal was to have it be completely a local system. And I think we've just kind of reached a point where, number one, it's going to be difficult to get it to be anywhere near as accurate. And even as we move towards that right now, it's going to be very slow, because
Yeah.
you have to go through multiple steps with the local models. So that's the first thing that we've run up against. The second thing, now that we have BrainDrive ready for developers, is I think first and foremost, what we need related to RAG with BrainDrive is not an all-encompassing memory, but chat with documents. So
Yep.
the ability to drop a document in, be able to chat with that document, and the ability to have knowledge bases where you can upload all of your health history, and you can have a page on BrainDrive, and anytime you want to talk to your AI doctor,
Hmm.
you go right to that page. It has all your health history, and you're off to the races, right?
Yep.
So I have a call scheduled with Beck today at 12 to talk to him about this shift. Now he may say on that call, "No, I'm an inch away from getting memory to work locally," although I don't think so from the back and forth that we've had over email. But assuming he doesn't say that, I think I'm going to switch him to leveraging everything we've done on the memory side to work on that chat with your document stuff.
I do think maybe, and since Beck is highly skilled in doing the memory thing, taking him, keeping with your plan, but maybe we find somebody to play with the memory other than Beck, and we can test different models because there are different sizes coming into play. You have the eight. I'm not sure what anybody expected out of eight, but eights are okay, and for an easy chat. But dealing with the context windows and getting serious results, eight would be too small.
Right.
But start looking at Minstrel's 24 and Quinn's 32, I believe, which are both newer models, and see what they do on the local memory side. And that way it maybe come up an evaluation of how well did it go through,
Yeah, I
especially
can
compared to
easily, yeah.
401.
I'll have him throw, even if we decide to pause right now, I'll
Yep.
have him throw the Quinn 32 billion on a cloud because
Yep.
we'll run it in the cloud. If it works, then we can,
Yep.
understand what it's going to look like if people do want to run that because that's going to take some pretty serious hardware,
That's
right?
24 gigabytes of VRAM to run the 32.
And what are you
And
looking at for like cost on that? Could
that's
I
like
could I run it
with
on the Menace forum? Probably not, right?
no, nope, nope. You would not be able to get that low. You would have to go to any of the unified the better apples, which have like 32 gigabytes of RAM, those unified ones on
I'm
Apple
probably gonna
Silicon.
have to upgrade my,
Yeah.
I bought this Mac and I was like, I'm gonna go up to a Pro, and I'm like, this was right before I started working on AI
AI.
stuff, and I was like, I don't need this extra RAM and blah blah blah. And of
Who
course,
needs
that was a big
RAM?
mistake. Yeah.
But
So yeah, all
and
right.
I like one of my cards, I have a 3090, which is two generations now old, and that runs 32 bits just fine.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
so
So
I that would
for like $1,500 basically,
yep.
something like that.
Yep, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of people. And 24 is if you're into that serious where you want to run memory locally, you're probably sitting on at least 24, if
Yeah.
not one of these unified architectures.
Yeah. Got it.
Uh, because
Okay.
even like Strix chips from AMD, which are their unified version of this, they could run a 32-bit as well.
Sweet. All right. Okay, so I will put 32B local memory and then document rag. Start on document rag.
Hmm.
Okay. All right. On my list was to also finish the local guide to AI, and I've learned a tremendous amount on this, and I think I have something pretty good once we have the I call this local AI for non-developers, the
Yep.
ultimate guide, because I found a really good one for developers that I'll put in the description section when I post this to the forums over at
Mhm.
community.brainDrive.ai. Really killer one for developers, but um, I'm not a developer, and so I'm speaking to the non-developers.
And
So,
that's a huge leap. That's not like,
oh no,
oh, you
yeah,
can
it
you can
was.
fake it.
Yeah, I was like, if I was a developer, but like, it's like, okay, this assumes you have your Python packages and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay,
And
I'm
right
trying to
there, he's
keep
like,
everything, in the command line of just copying and pasting instructions, one or two lines, and that's it.
yep.
So we have, what is it? Why is it better? I'm going to add a drawback section in here. I thought about that over the weekend. Then we have what you need to run it, your computer, how to check that. And then I've put in like there's a bunch of additional content that we're going to be able to write that is offshoots of this. Like
Yep.
if you don't have this computer, then buying one. And also there's a lot of really good content that we can link out to on this. And there's a few people that are actually known for this now, specifically buying computers for running local AI.
Yep.
So that'll be good to shout them out and get some networking done in the community. How they work, and this is basically how the model loads. Just a real high level. Again, if you're a developer, you'll say, well, it might not work exactly like that, but this is like what you need to understand.
Yep.
Quantization, why it matters, where to find Olama and Hugging Face, choosing your how to choose your first model, what to look at on Olama. If you're not sure what to pick, I just recommend the Quinn models, like we talked about, and choosing a small model there. And then I'm using that as my example throughout the rest of the guide. So getting it up and running with Olama, how to even find your terminal, because I'd never used a terminal before, starting this process, how to
Yeah, they're
run the
talk to go to your
model.
terminal. Huh?
Yeah, what? Yeah, no idea. And what it all looks like, and bam, you're up and running. And then the model file and how to customize it for what it is. What is the model file? How to change the system prompt in Olama and actually save that system prompt. Again, just more content ideas on how to write a good system prompt here. And then changing the creativity of the model's responses by changing the temperature of the model, and then the context window. I feel like these are like the three main
Yep.
things, that people are going to want to change. But then there's a bunch of other settings. I actually found a list of all of the settings along with their
Uh,
defaults.
yep.
So this is cool for, you can change whatever you want. I'm talking about the model license and why that's important. And then here we come, how to add a chat GPT like interface to your local AI system. So we're going to talk about BrainDrive here, of course. And
Yep.
then we're also going to talk about, so I've left this for now open while I think we're there now where I can include some of these screenshots, et cetera, in there. And then I do still want to talk about other systems for running
Yep.
local AI because we view these as, co-opetition basically, not, anybody who's working on building out the open source and local AI community we want to be a part of. And so the different options there, what people like about them, what they don't like about them. I limited it to 10.
Yep.
I feel like most of the ones, and then so that's what I'm down to. I made it 28 pages so far. I do
Small
think
book.
but the thing I was like, usually I'd break this up, because it's so
Yep.
long, but like each step builds on the next,
Yeah.
and like once you get down to the Olama stuff, like you're up and running. You know what I mean? If you want to stop there, you can, but like
Hmm.
this is my
And reference
journey.
later.
This is my journey basically
Yeah.
now. So I didn't technically finish it, but I think that this is going to be a living and ongoing thing now, and not an I'm done. It's just as I learn more, as I continue on my journey,
Hmm.
I'm going to continually update this, etc. So I got a lot done on this last week, and I was excited, like I said in the celebrations, that I think I have something really good here that's missing in the market and will really help those non-developers like me get up and running with this, and hopefully also give BrainDrive some good exposure in the
Yep.
community as well. So that's where I'm at with that. I'm going to put continue on. I want to do some image work for the guide, and play with some of the image tools, which also can be like I want to get up and running with like comfy UI and that type of stuff. Like, and I feel like that can actually be a section in the guide as well. Creating some images with for the guide and putting in steps on how to use the image stuff.
Yep. Because there's a lot of selections there.
And for that, like I feel like once we're able to get an individual up and running with AI chat, I think it's fine with BrainDrive if like for now we just like here's how to use Comfy UI and where you can use that and blah blah blah. And
Yeah.
then as we build it into BrainDrive, we can just add that and update the guide. All right, sweet. All right, so the big thing I think for both of us this week then is getting some stuff out for developers. All right,
Yes.
something else you wanted to say?
Nope, nope. I was going right there, right there. Is I have job descriptions for developers or task
And
descriptions, however they want to go.
so let's talk through what do you know so far? Like what have you thought about so far? And then we can talk through like what we need to accomplish this week.
Mostly it comes down to what I call tier one plugins. And that is like the settings. We right now we just deal with the llama. Somebody could very easily come behind me, use the same basic code that's sitting right there for settings on plugins, and expand into Open Router using APIs from for Anthropic, OpenAI, uh, Google, their Gemini series models, and let's see, whatever. Yeah, Grok. There's a also using light LLM, VLLM, because not everybody runs Olama locally. There are other flavors and making sure that there is a plugin available so that it can connect and people have options. Especially
Okay.
if we're attacking the developer community first, they're the ones that are going to be on all these odd little platforms.
Okay. So what I'm hearing here is the top priority plugin right off the gate is the ability to work with additional models within the chat interface. Is that
Yep,
right?
yep,
Okay. Um, uh, and so right now, as things stand, you can whatever models you have in your Olama will show up in BrainDrive, correct?
correct.
So
Yep,
any model that's runs in Olama,
you have access to.
you have access to in your BrainDrive.
And
Okay.
you can connect to multiple Olama servers as well. So if you're like my house where I have three different Olama servers in the house with different models based on whatever I want to do, and that way I'm not keeping certain PCs hogged up. I can connect to all three. I can see all three on my list. And when you're dealing developers, you have those signed because you get into self-hosting people like myself.
So if I have an Olama running in the cloud and one on my local machine, I can connect to both of them.
Yes.
Oh, that's
Yep.
awesome.
You'll get two different lists. One like and each server can have its own name, so that if you want to say this is my cloud Llama and this is my home Llama, you can put that in there and you instantly visibly know which one's which.
That's awesome. Okay. So running Olama models for text chat, we're there.
We're there. We can
Okay.
do better. We can do better, but we have worked out the quirks. We have fine-tuned it so that it's not hokey to work with. I can sit there and have an ongoing conversation. So the platform to improve upon is solid now.
Okay. Um, and we do so it sounds like we can work on improving the Olama
Yep.
experience, but you're saying let's first work on other connections.
Only because you don't know how, okay, if you're using Olama, that's great. And a lot of Katie Carter, they'll mostly use Olama. It's the developer community that they will be using this from multiple places.
Yeah.
If you're out on your laptop and your laptop does not have like NVIDIA or something on there, no odds are you're using Grok, you're using OpenAI, you're a Cloud Olama version. So you need to be able to connect to this in multiple ways so that you can use it. You can develop with it. Otherwise, there's no point in developing with it. That's why the settings and the different routers and using them to inference is the first key right there.
Okay. So my understanding, again,
Yep.
non-developer here, is there's OpenAI compatible APIs.
Yep.
And if you're running an OpenAI compatible API, do we need one plugin or do we need many different
That
plugins?
would do it. We might only need one for some of these,
Yeah.
and I didn't go through each one to see if there's something we could that says you need to be a different one. Um, like And we do hard code the route that the endpoint route that like Olama is looking for. So good example, the te using text gen web UI as your model server,
Yep.
which is possible. It has an odd endpoint, if I recall. So you would almost need something specifically to handle that endpoint in settings, or you would need a specific setting plugin for that.
So what do you think is the most important additional hookup to have beyond Olama?
I would say you'd probably start with Open Router, Grok, Claude, and OpenAI.
Open
They're your,
router, Grok.
yep, Anthropic and OpenAI.
Okay, and you're not sure until you look into it more whether that's one plugin or multiple
Yeah,
different plugins.
yeah. So for the sake of being just secure, I have each one individual. That
Okay.
way, if a person will go, okay, I'm using Open Router, I grab the Open Router plugin. I don't need to have special knowledge. I just use the Olama and make this setting change. No, you just grab the Open Router one, and it's going to be as simple for somebody to come in behind me and say, okay, here's David's Open or Olama plugin. All I got to do is make some changes to it,
Do you think
and
this
run.
is the order? Open router first, then Grok, then Anthropic, then OpenAI?
Yeah, I could go with that order very easily because Open Router and Grok would probably be your two top in the developer community because they have free access models, so people like take advantage of those. And they're that little fringe people which tend to be developers.
And do you think this is one develop like if we're giving out this, do you think because it's going to be pretty easy once you built one of these to build them all that we just give them to one developer?
Yep, this would be a one developer
And
ticket
this
easy.
that can be our as long as he or she wants to keep working with us,
Yep,
they can be our model connector person.
yep,
And
because there
anytime
are
someone
four
says, "Hey,
on.
I want llama.cpp," great.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Okay, what's the next priority after model hookups?
I like. Ooh, okay, in the Olama one, the or somewhere this has got to take place. Haven't figured out the best place, especially with the new way I did the text chat. The ability to manage your Olama server, and that is the ability to, okay, I want to add a new model, so you do not have to go down to a prompt or a terminal. You can just simply access through the API of the Olama and say, hey, I want to download this model from Hugging Face, and it takes care of grabbing the model for you, downloading it, and making it available to you.
Okay. The ability to add a new model
Yep,
to Olama without having to go to the command line. Is that a
yep,
good way to say that?
yep. And my vision for that has always been doing it inside settings, the Olama settings, because you can have multiple Olama servers, and this would allow you to approach each Olama server as an individual.
Got it. Okay.
And I'll just say right now, Olama is the only one with this detail. That's why I separate it from a person doing settings for other inference servers versus the Olama settings itself.
Okay. What's the next priority?
Personas. We need the ability to change your system prompt and all of the parameters right there on the fly, however you please. And that'll be
Okay.
a pretty hefty plugin when it comes down to it, because I can see that being going in settings as well. But it deals with database work. It deals with working with settings on a very detailed nature. And then that, just like how you see the models populate in your plugin, so you can select a model, I'd like to see personas do that as well. So that you could have a plugin and it can automatically go, okay, if I pick persona Jimmy, Jimmy has a system prompt of I'm a software developer. I've been doing it for 10 years, blah, 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 whatever it has. It has a temperature setting of zero point 0.5 because it doesn't like to get too creative. You could even go so far as have a preferred model for Jimmy. And you can change the top P. And so that when you load Jimmy up on the persona window in your text chat, it should automatically change the model that you've selected, and it should use its system prompt, and it should use its parameters. And that way you get the Jimmy experience whenever you select it.
Got it. Okay. What's next after personas?
Then I get into plugins for summarization and email reply.
Okay, but so now we're moving into use cases, right?
Yeah, yeah, because I want to touch on use cases just a bit so that we can get a feel for how they'll look, how they'll react very easily, very quickly. If we need to make changes in the core for where we want to go for model match and things like that, since we have work coming in that direction, we will know right then and there.
Okay. So that would be article summarization,
Yep,
email replies.
yep. We have just chat, and Persona takes care of that.
How about saving prompts?
Yeah, same. Okay, prompt library. I just hadn't got to that, but yeah, but a method of handling prompt library. I don't know. That might even be a setting as well. It really it's pretty simple to manage, and that way, again, you would have this accessible to every page then.
Got it. And although it's not a priority for the initial phase one chat
Yeah,
experience, I don't think there's any reason not to just have Beck start working on chat with documents and stuff.
yeah, yep.
Okay.
And he can approach that however he wants. It's like if he wants to first work on his back end code and get that working like that, so he has a basis of what, but he probably already has an idea and he has what he wants to do.
Yep.
And he could even take my plugin that I worked on already and go, hey, I'm going to make chat works with this, chat with
Yep.
document work with this, and that way it has a lot of work done for him.
Cool. All right. I think that's everything we had on our phase one list. Okay. Um, what do we need to do next to start handing this out to people?
I will update it in GitHub today. I am probably going to skip doing I'll call it an update script. And just because so many massive changes are on this, I could easily miss one and it could start sucking up 2 days. Just a new install. Plain and simple. Let's just scrap everything old. Let's go with a new.
I think
And
until we get to V1, that's fine.
yeah, yeah. I thought about that over the weekend when I was all the changes I was starting to make, and I was like, you know what? Let's not waste time. That's unneeded. That we could burn a day on unneeded stuff right there. So I'll have that done today, and then I start doing job descriptions.
Okay.
And
So getting this live on GitHub
yep,
is the
this is my
next
typical
step.
Monday. When we hang up today, I start working on going live.
Okay. And then tomorrow, job descriptions.
Yes,
Okay.
hey, my hope is today. I want to start on it.
Okay. Without going into extreme
Yeah.
detail, how are we going to come up with those job descriptions?
I am going to probably take a quick look at each one of the providers to see if something sticks out, number one. Um, uh, I will come up with a verbal description. I will probably use AI to help me fine tune each one and for anything that I miss and stuff like that. And then write it in English because I write in C code most of the time in my head. So English is always a good thing.
Who is the person, like the ideal contractor to help us with plugins? What does
We're go
that person?
React and Python.
They know React and Python.
Yep. If you know React and Python and you have been dealing with AI so that you understand the provider, right there.
So you know React and Python.
Yep.
You've been dealing with AI and hopefully local AI, right?
Yeah, yeah, oh yeah, because these are the mechanics that you use for local AI. And if you've been dealing with local AI, you've dealt with an interface that has probably required this, so you've had exposure to that side as well.
Okay. And someone that's excited about
Yeah. Yep.
self-sovereign user-owned AI.
Zealot.
Right. Cool. All right. Matt fits this profile, right? BrainDrive
Hmm.
Concierge Matt.
Yes, I couldn't.
I-
The only thing we didn't see if he knows React.
okay.
That's the only he knows Python, he knows AI. He did a good job on Concierge and for what we asked for and all like that. React is the only unknown right there. Which hey, I'll be blunt. If you know AI, you have the basics of my plugin already there. You should be able to good to go.
Okay, so I'll try throwing him another project because I
Yep,
got the sense if we could give him something that was defined,
yep.
that he'd be open to working on it. So I'd like to keep working with him. All right. Last thing is we got back from Victor, our developer that's working on BrainDrive Model Match.
Mhm.
For anyone who doesn't already know, BrainDrive Model Match is a marketplace that we're developing that's going to make it easy to see whether or not a model will run on your hardware or not and how to know that. And then also choose the best model for specific use cases. So, where you go to Hugging Face for everything, you'll come to BrainDrive Model Match for very well-defined use cases that we have these case studies around where we're doing examples for things like article summarization or therapy or those types of things. And we're actually running the models through and giving a bit more of a subjective score for these things based on just when we look at them, how do we
Yep,
feel like they are performing instead of trying to base everything off of math, which there's a lot of benchmarks out there that are already doing that. But, I think the number of questions that the local llama community and other local AI communities are getting about what model to use
yep.
indicates that there's a real gap here. So we're going to try
Every
and fill
week.
that gap. Yeah. Every day, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, true. Some
Um,
kind of question around trying to select a model. And
yeah.
one thing I want to for somebody watching this, Dave said marketplace. He likes that word, but we're not selling you the model. It's just a
Right.
directory.
Yeah.
Just
Directory is the
yeah.
better word. Yep. Directory and hopefully eventually a model match concierge that you can just chat with and
Yep.
gives you all the information that you need. Yeah.
Yeah.
Directory
Once
is
we get a good
the
sizable group of information, then we could probably start looking at fine tuning a model so that you can just chat with it.
cool. All right. So, can you just take a quick look at what Victor sent? Dave hasn't had a chance to look at any of this yet, but he's and just I guess for the purposes of this call, what do we need to do to evaluate what he sent?
I will have to get this up and running. He did it in React. He uses JavaScript versus TypeScript. I don't know how much you know about coding, but the main difference is when you're coding, when you're doing TypeScript, it is every variable has to be defined. You can't get loosey goosey with the variables being tossed around and types. And we're in JavaScript, you can just wing it. It's like a wild, wild west coding type thing, which can cause issues down the road. That's why I prefer just doing everything in TypeScript. But he's used that, no biggie. I see how he has his database set up. This looks like at some sort of, I'll call it his initial stage because there's not a lot of code.
How about it? Because I don't want to suck up your time with
Yep,
this right now. I'd much rather have you just heads down on getting Brain Drive ready for developers. It seems like maybe if I do a call with him and say, show this to me, like
yep,
install it and show it to me, that would be a good next step.
yep. Because he obviously has it running. I can tell you that right now. Um, it looks like he is on a Mac as well. If I had to throw a guess at, just because I don't see certain things that I would normally see.
Okay.
Oh, yes, he is.
All right. So, and my sense is for a V1 on this, if we get something that's working for me that I like, even if we have to recreate it in a
Yeah.
different programming language, it'll be so much easier to give something to someone and say, hey, go rebuild this in TypeScript. You know what I mean?
Actually, no, we don't. We won't even really need to do that. If we ever get to that far, we'll save that for version two.
Yeah.
When version two will be okay, we're going to clean up
As
the
long as he can show me something that I like for
Yep,
this, it's like, let's get it live.
yeah, because there is not much between React JavaScript and React TypeScript. They're both React at the end of the day.
Okay. All right. And for anything else we want to discuss on this call?
No, I'm good. I'm cruising. I'm happy. I woke up this morning, like I said, I was going to give you Christmas, and that was my goal.
Great. And all right, so we'll end the live stream there. Thanks everybody who attended. Again, we do these every Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time, so you can follow along with the process. And I actually am not sure how to monitor for questions and that type of stuff. So if you ask one, pop over to the community this time, and when I post the recording there, I'll answer any questions, or Dave will,
Yep.
that came in. And we'll see you next week, Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And feel free to jump in the forums or on the GitHub in the meantime. Thanks,
Yep.
everybody.
Have a good one.